So guys, as always, we are here in Start Spring IO, okay? And we are creating our new microservice, and we are using Maven as always. We are using the Spring Boot 3, and also we are using Java 17, but if you are following this video, you can use other versions, okay? But remember, you should understand some changes that you are going to do. So in terms of dependencies, the only dependency that we are using here is the Lombok and Spring Cloud Stream. Okay, so now let's generate our project. So guys, now that we have here our project open in our IntelliJ, and the next thing that we need to do is to, for example, change, okay, this dependency. Instead of having here the Spring Cloud Stream, we need to change it in order to use the correct binder, which will be the Kafka one. So the dependency should be Spring Cloud Starter Stream Kafka. Okay, now that we have here our project, let's start implementing our decision microservice. The first thing that we need to do in order to consume the event, just to remember you guys, we are going to consume this event, okay? So our customer microservice will send us, right, a customer created event and also email change, but let's focus only on the customer created event. So we are going to consume this event, okay? And based on some properties of this event, we are going to consume in this microservice decision, and we are going to decide if we can give, for example, the credit to this customer, okay? So in that order, the first thing that we need to do is, as always, create our domain model. So we have created here a new package, which we call by domain, and now we are going to create our domain model, which will be the decision. So what we are going to have here in the decision. In the decision, I think we are going to use let's first take a look here in the requirement, okay? So we are going to decide if we can give credit to this customer by, for example, using here some criteria, okay? For example, the duration of the credit, okay, should be 40 years. Okay, so we are going to give for every single customer, for every single events that we are going to consume, the customer created, we are going to decide if we can give them, the credit, okay? So, and it should be 40 years. So the first requirement is we should reject the credit if the customer is older than 70 years old after the credit limit. So after these 40 years, if customer is older than 70, okay, we are going to reject. And also we should approve immediately if customer's social security number, as we can see here, we will get the customer social security number here, okay, in this event that we are consuming, okay? This is the customer microservice, so I'm just pointing here the event. So we have here social security number and birth date. So using these two properties, we are going to decide here, for example, if social security number is even, we are going to approve the credit immediately, okay? The decision will be approved. So as an alternative, we should pre-approve the credit if, you know, like for example, it's just in the end of the credit, okay, it will be less than 70 years old, okay? I'm just trying to play here in order to make our example more interesting. So in that order, let's create our first, let's keep creating our domain model, okay, in order to decide if we can give a customer credit or not. So the first thing that I think that we need to do is, for example, let's create here our domain model, okay? So in that order, let me see what we are going to have here. If we take a look here, we need a social security number, okay? We need also the birth date, okay, of this customer in order to make some calculation with the credit limit, okay? So in that order, let's, for example, here create, okay, we need also, as we can see here, we should approve, we should reject, okay, we should pre-approved. So most of them, they are status, right? This is a status. So it's a good practice. As we are following domain-driven design, I think that we can use, for example, in order to create this status, the state, okay, let's call it by state, not status. In order to create the state, reject, approved, we can use Enam, okay? So in that order, I'm just going to create here a new package. Let's call it by enumerated. And now let's create here a Enam, and let's call it by state. So this Enam can be also a value object, okay? Because Enam is strong, Enam is safe type, okay? It's safe, so we can create here our states. So here we have our states. Yeah, the next thing that we need to do is maybe let's now use here, okay, the state. And now the next thing that we need to do in order to consume this event is we need to create, for example, let me see what we have here in the customer, in the event, okay, this is the event, all right, and I think we need the social security number and the birth date, right? So as we have already here the social security number, I don't want to create another time, okay, because this video can become so long. So let me just, for example, copy, okay, and paste it here. Yes, so it's complaining. I think we need also the Spring Data JPA dependency. Let's go to our POM XML and add it here in the section, in the dependencies. So now let's reload. Okay, now it's not complaining anymore. So if you are following our videos, you understand that this is a value object, okay, social security. And here we can now add here, for example, the social security number. And yeah, now we can, for example, here create our, let's make our class as an entity. So it needs a no-args constructor. Let's put it, for example, the access level should be protect. And also, as we can see, it's complaining because it needs an ID. As we are having here an entity, so an entity needs an ID. Nice. And as always, let me just use the generate ID, okay, the strategy of generate ID. So now we have our domain object. The next thing that we need to do is we are going to create here now a method, okay, which will allow us to, for example, decide, okay, instantiate the decision class. So in that order, for example, let me just generate here a constructor like this, and as always we want to make this constructor as private. And now we are going to create here a new method. Let's create here a static method. So the method will be decide, and what we are going to have here, we are going to receive, I think we are going to receive the social security number, and we are going to receive also the customer birth date, right? And yes, I think this is what we need, okay? Now let's just, for example, I think we can now return, we can now instantiate the decision. For now, let me just see the first rule here. So should reject if customer is older than 70 years old, okay, after the credit limit. This is very nice. So let me just for now, for example, here put a state reject, okay, and yeah, let's use here the social security number. And for example, right now, let me just, for example, here, let's create our test. Okay, the first thing that we are going to do, okay, we are going just do something, for example, let's copy here the requirement in order to be more clear, and let's paste it here in our test, for example, like this. And now, yes. Okay, so this will be our first test. Okay, and let's just annotate here with test. And yes, the first thing that we need to do, we are going to test it. Okay, for example, I know that we start like putting here for example, we could just leave it like this. Okay, so we are going to let's suppose, okay, it's always approved. And now the next thing that we need to do, we are going to validate, we are going to create a decision. Okay, side. Okay, so now let's do something like, for example, what it takes, social security number. Okay, will be, so this is the social security number. Okay, and the next thing that we need also, we need to give, for example, customer birth date. Okay, can be, for example, so this is, okay, what it need here, it's a string. Okay, it needs a social security number. So in that order, let's just for example here, let me just, for example here, create. Okay, it's not a string. Let me just do like this. It's not good idea. Okay, let me just, for example, put it here inside. Okay, so social security number, yes. So let's see. Okay, let's now, for example, this is given. Okay, now we have here the when, right? And the next thing that we need to do here is then. So now the thing that we need to do is we are going to test, okay, if this, for example, if this test pass. Okay, so now let's see, for example, here, let's use the assertions. Okay, equals, yeah, let's assert if the decision, okay, now let's use the state, okay, that reject, okay, is equal the state, okay, the decision that get state. Okay, it's a method. So using test-driven development, you should understand, okay, how to do this. So I could just come here, okay, and return the state, but instead I'm just going to use here the lombok, okay, the getter method. Okay, so getter, as we can see, now it's passed. And now let's test and let's check if, okay, and of course we started with null there, but now let's go and let's implement here the logic in order to reject when the customer, as we can see here, we are not using the local date. But now let's go. The first thing that we need to do, we are going to read here the requirement. Okay, the duration of credit, the credit should be 40 years. In that order, let's just, for example, use here, I think we can use the period that, yes, of years. Okay, let's give here 40. Okay, so the next thing that we need also, for example, should reject if customer is older than 70 years after. Okay. So now the next thing that we need to do here is to let's give just here, let's create here a variable. Let's put it like this. Later we are going to refactor it because it's red, green, refactor. Okay, so we are in the red stage. So now the next thing that we need to do is we need to make some decision. For example, instead of being like pre-approved, we need to, for example, calculate for this particular customer that we are creating here in our test, okay, how old he will be in the end of this credit, okay, in the end of the credit. So for now, let's, for example, use local date that now, and now let's, for example, the customer is requesting for credit. We are calculating the decision now, okay. Let's, for example, put the 40 years, okay, credit limit. So credit limit, yes, it's complaining. I think it's not plus years, it's plus, yes. So let's just put here. So what we are doing here, okay, we are saying that this, okay, so from now, okay, plus 40 years, okay, from now today till 40 years should be the maximum, okay, years, okay, the maximum age that the customer can be in the end of the credit. So now that we have something like that, we need to calculate how many years this customer born in this date, okay, will be in the end of the credit. So in that order, for example, we can use the prono unit, that years, that between, okay, so we are going to see between the birth date, okay, and end, okay, how many years, okay, have passed. So this will be the like the customer credit, okay. So I'm just trying to play here with Java time, okay. Now let's calculate here. For example, let's make like if, okay, customer years in the end of credit, okay, is greater than the maximum, right? The maximum years, okay. If the customer in the end, okay, of the credit is older than 70, okay, then we are going to return, okay, a new decision with the status reject, okay. So in that order, let's just put state that reject. Now let's use the customer social security number, okay, else it's approved. Now let's go back to our test. So now let's test our use case. So first let's test reject. It should, for example, okay, so yeah, we need to put someone older than that, for example, like these years. So as we can see, now it's passed, okay. And the next thing that we need to do is, for example, here, okay, we can now continue to test our application, but I will just skip this part, okay, because this can be very long, okay. But for me, for example, now I just need to create a new test that will test, for example, this case. So should approve immediately if, okay, yeah, should approve immediately if customer social security number is even, okay. So in that order, let me just, for example, here create a new test, not here but here. So we are putting here, for example, we are using here a customer, okay, which the social security number is even, okay, and we are giving here, for example, this, and so it should be approved, okay. So as we can see, should approve if customer social security number is even. So in that order, the number is even, the customer age is okay. So we are going to wait, okay, we are going to test, and we are going to see if the customer social security number, okay, if the customer with a social security number even can be approved, okay. So it fails. Now let's go back here and let's implement. So let's just put, for example, here, else if, for example, let's use the SS social security number, for example, 2 is equal 0, okay, then we should return, okay, approved and approved. So now let's go here and let's check. Okay, it passing. So guys, this is just an exercise, okay, how you can, of course we should not start doing TDD the way that we started, okay, but this is the idea, okay. So first you test your code, it will fail, then you implement, then it will pass, and then you can refactoring. For example, here it's a mess, okay, so we can refactoring, but it's very nice because you can understand that we can use the period, okay, we can use all these dates.